The alien girl warned me not to drink her blood, but I couldn't resist what came after asterisk. The scorching sun beat down on Jake Martinez as he stumbled through the endless sand dunes of the Sahara Desert. His water bottle had been empty for hours, and his GPS device had stopped working 3 days ago. As a freelance photographer, chasing stories for National Geographic, he had taken bigger risks before, but this felt different. The local guides had refused to venture into this particular region, speaking in hushed whispers about strange lights and voices in the sand. Jake's camera equipment weighed heavy on his shoulders as he crested another dune, his eyes, bloodshot from sand and exhaustion, suddenly focused on something impossible. Rising from the desert floor like ancient teeth were crystalline structures that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. The formations were beautiful and terrifying, defying everything he knew about geology. As he approached the crystal formation, the air around him began to shimmer. The temperature dropped by at least 20 degrees, and he could swear he heard music. Not human music, but something that made his bones vibrate in harmony. Jake raised his camera instinctively, but before he could take a shot, she appeared. The girl materialized from behind one of the larger crystals, as if she had been part of the formation itself. Her skin was a pale lavender color that seemed to glow from within, and her hair moved as if underwater, despite the absence of any breeze. She was tall and graceful, with eyes that held the depth of galaxies. When she spoke, her voice resonated directly in his mind. "You should not be here, Earth Dweller," she said, though her lips barely moved. "This place is sacred to my kind." Jake's mouth went dry, and not just from dehydration. "I'm sorry, I didn't know. I'm just lost. My name is Jake, and I'm a photographer." The alien girl studied him with those cosmic eyes, tilting her head as if listening to something he couldn't hear. "I am Zara of the Celestial Nomads. We have been watching your species for centuries, but direct contact is forbidden." "Watching us?" Jake managed to croak out. Zara moved closer, and he noticed that her feet didn't quite touch the ground. "My people travel between worlds, documenting the rise and fall of civilizations. Earth is young, but your species shows promise. That is why what I must tell you is so important." She gestured to the crystal formations around them. "These are memory crystals. They contain the knowledge and experiences of countless worlds. We place them on planets as markers, but also as warnings." "Warnings about what?" Zara's expression grew grave. "A great darkness is coming. An ancient enemy of my people has awakened, and they consume worlds like yours for sustenance. The devourers, as we call them, turn planets into lifeless husks." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "When?" "Soon, but there is hope. My blood carries the essence of the memory crystals. It can awaken latent abilities in certain humans, giving them the power to fight back. But it comes at a terrible cost." She extended her hand, and Jake saw a small cut on her palm. Silver liquid oozed from the wound, glowing like liquid starlight. "One drop of this could save your world, but it will change you forever. You will no longer be fully human." Jake stared at the otherworldly blood, his mind racing. "What kind of change?" "You would become a bridge between our species. You would gain our knowledge, our abilities, but you would also carry our burden. The weight of countless worlds would press upon your consciousness." The photographer in him wanted to document this moment, but the human in him was terrified. "Why me? Why not someone more important?" Zara smiled sadly. "Because you are here. Because you were brave enough to venture into the forbidden places. Because your heart is pure enough to handle the truth." She held out her hand, the silver blood still flowing. "The choice is yours, Jake Martinez. Drink my blood and become Earth's guardian, or leave this place and let humanity face its fate unprepared." Jake looked at the glowing substance, then back at Zara's ancient eyes. In the distance, He could see storm clouds gathering on the horizon, but they didn't look like any weather pattern he had ever seen. They moved with purpose, with malevolence. "If I do this," he said slowly, "will I still be me?" "You will be more than you ever imagined," Zara replied. "But you will also be less than you were. The human Jake Martinez will become a memory, and something new will be born." The wind picked up, and the crystals began to hum louder. Jake could feel something approaching from beyond the stars, something hungry and cold. He looked at Zara's blood one more time, then at the woman who had offered him this impossible choice. "I have to do it," he said, reaching for her hand. "I can't let my world die." Zara's eyes filled with what looked like tears made of starlight. "Then drink, brave human. Drink and become the bridge between worlds." Jake brought her palm to his lips, tasted the metallic sweetness of alien blood, and felt his world explode into 1,000 colors he had never seen before. The moment Zara's blood touched Jake's tongue, reality fractured like broken glass. His vision exploded into a kaleidoscope of colors that had no names in any human language. Every cell in his body felt like it was being rewritten, restructured, rebuilt from the ground up. He collapsed to his knees in the sand, his camera equipment scattered around him as convulsions racked his frame. "Fight it," Zara's voice echoed in his mind, though he could barely see her through the storm of sensation. "Do not let the transformation consume your essence. Hold on to who you are." But holding on to his humanity felt like trying to grasp smoke. Memories that weren't his own flooded his consciousness. He saw worlds of crystal and light, civilizations that had risen and fallen before Earth's sun was born. He felt the weight of cosmic responsibility, the burden of knowledge that spanned galaxies. Through the chaos, he became aware of something else. A presence at the edge of his transformed perception, dark and hungry. The devourers that Zara had warned him about were not just coming, they were already here, probing Earth's defenses, testing the boundaries of reality itself. "I can see them," Jake gasped, his voice now carrying harmonics that made the crystal formations resonate. "There, in the space between spaces, feeding on the dark matter that holds the universe together." Zara knelt beside him, her form becoming more solid as his new senses adapted. "Yes, now you understand. They are not beings as we comprehend them. They are entropy given consciousness, the inevitable heat death of the universe, accelerated and weaponized." Jake's body had stopped convulsing, but the changes were far from over. His skin now carried a faint luminescence, and when he looked at his hands, he could see energy patterns flowing beneath the surface like living circuitry. Eyes once brown now held flecks of silver that moved like liquid metal. "How do I stop them?" he asked, struggling to his feet. The world looked different. Now he could see the underlying structure of reality, the quantum foam that connected all things. "You cannot stop them," Zara said, her voice tinged with sadness. "But you can prepare your people. The blood I have given you carries the genetic memory of every world we have tried to save. Some succeeded, others failed, but all left knowledge that can be used." Jake nodded, understanding flooding through him. "I need to find others, humans who can undergo the transformation." "Yes, but choose carefully. Not all humans can survive the change. Look for those who have already shown signs of psychic sensitivity, artists whose work transcends normal perception, scientists who see patterns others miss." As if summoned by their conversation, Jake's enhanced senses detected movement in the distance. A convoy of military vehicles was approaching, their engines creating heat signatures that blazed like beacons in his new vision. Leading them was a woman in a colonel's uniform, her mind burning with curiosity and determination. "Colonel Rebecca Torres," Jake said, though he had no idea how he knew her name. "She's been tracking unusual electromagnetic signatures in this region for months. Zara's expression grew concerned. Your military will not understand what you have become. They will see you as a threat. Then I'll have to make them understand, Jake replied, feeling a strange confidence flowing through him. The knowledge in my head, it's not just about the Devourers. I can see solutions to problems humanity has struggled with for decades. Clean energy, faster than light travel, medical advances that could end suffering. The vehicles drew closer, and Jake could hear the thoughts of the soldiers inside. Fear, excitement, confusion all mixing together in a symphony of human emotion that his enhanced mind could interpret like music. I have to go, Zara said, her form beginning to fade. My people cannot be seen by your military. But remember, Jake Martinez, you are no longer just human. You are the first of a new species, a bridge between what was and what must be. Wait, Jake called out, but she was already becoming translucent. How do I contact you? You don't, she replied, her voice growing distant. From now on, you must trust in the knowledge I have given you. And Jake, be careful who you trust. The Devourers have agents among your kind, humans who have been promised power in exchange for betraying their own species. With that, she vanished, completely, leaving Jake alone among the crystal formations as the military convoy crested the final dune. He looked down at his transformed hands, feeling the weight of an entire world's survival resting on his shoulders. The lead vehicle stopped 50 feet away, and Colonel Torres stepped out, her weapon drawn but not aimed. You're the photographer who went missing 3 days ago, she called out. Jake Martinez, right? I was, Jake replied, his voice carrying new harmonic frequencies that made the crystals sing. Now I'm something else entirely. Torres' eyes widened as she noticed his glowing skin and transformed eyes. What happened to you? Jake looked at the woman who would become either his greatest ally or his most dangerous enemy. I drank alien blood, and now I'm the only thing standing between humanity and extinction. The Colonel's finger tightened on her weapon's trigger. That's impossible. Colonel, Jake said, allowing just a fraction of his new power to manifest. The crystals around them began to pulse in unison, and the sand beneath their feet started to levitate. Nothing is impossible anymore. Colonel Rebecca Torres had seen combat in 3 different war zones, survived an explosion that killed 6 of her teammates, and spent years investigating unexplained phenomena for the Pentagon's Classified Research Division. But nothing had prepared her for the sight of Jake Martinez floating 6 inches above the desert sand, his skin glowing like a human-shaped aurora. Stand down, she barked to her team, though her own weapon remained trained on the transformed photographer. Nobody shoots unless I give the order. Jake slowly lowered himself to the ground, his feet touching the sand with barely a whisper. Colonel Torres, I know this is hard to believe, but I'm still human. Enhanced, but still human. Enhanced how? She demanded, her scientific mind warring with her military training. And how do you know my name? The same way I know that you've been tracking electromagnetic anomalies in this region for 8 months. The same way I know that your daughter Emma is in the hospital with a rare genetic condition that your doctors can't cure. Jake's silver-flecked eyes met hers. The same way I know that you've been having dreams about creatures made of shadow and hunger. Torres' weapon wavered slightly. The dreams were classified information, shared only with the Pentagon's most secretive research groups. What are you? I'm humanity's first line of defense, Jake replied. And we have very little time. Before Torres could respond, the crystal formations around them began to emit a high-pitched whine. Jake's head snapped up, his enhanced senses detecting something that made his blood run cold. The space above them was rippling, reality bending as something massive pushed through from another dimension. Everyone back to the vehicles, Torres shouted, but Jake raised his hand. No, it's too late for that. They're here. The sky split open. Like a wound, and through the tear poured creatures that defied description. They were not made of matter as humans understood it, but of pure hunger given form. Dark energy writhed where their bodies should be, and their presence sucked the heat from the air around them. The Devourers, Jake whispered, and suddenly he was moving faster than human reflexes should allow. Silver light erupted from his skin as he launched himself into the air, his consciousness expanding to encompass the entire battlefield. The soldiers opened fire, but their bullets passed harmlessly through the creatures. The Devourers descended, like a plague of living shadows, their touch withering everything they came into contact with. One of them reached for a young private, and Jake intercepted it with a blast of energy that sent the creature reeling. Conventional weapons won't work, he shouted to Torres. They exist partially outside our reality. Then how do we fight them? Torres called back, emptying her magazine into one of the creatures with no effect. Jake's mind raced through the knowledge Zara had given him. On 17 different worlds, civilizations had faced this same enemy. Most had fallen, but a few had found ways to fight back. The key was resonance matching, the frequency of the creature's existence, and disrupting their cohesion. The crystals, Jake realized. They're tuned to the same frequency as the Devourers. He pressed his hands against the nearest crystal formation, channeling his enhanced abilities through the alien structure. The crystals began to sing, their harmonic frequency rising to a pitch that made the air itself vibrate. The Devourers recoiled, their shadowy forms becoming less stable. It's working, Torres shouted, then grabbed her radio. Command, this is Torres. We need immediate evacuation and a full scientific team. We've made contact with hostile extraterrestrial entities, but Jake could sense something else approaching through the dimensional rift. Something much larger and more intelligent than the scout creatures they were fighting. A devourer queen, ancient and cunning, with the power to drain entire star systems. Colonel, we need to evacuate now, Jake said, his voice tight with urgency. What's coming next is beyond anything these crystals can handle. Torres looked at him, and in that moment, she made a decision that would change the course of human history. My team will evacuate, but I'm staying with you. If you're really humanity's defender, then you need someone who can bridge the gap between you and the military. Jake nodded, grateful for her trust. Then we need to move fast. I can sense others like me, scattered across the globe, humans, who have the potential to undergo the transformation. We need to find them before the Devourers do. As Torres' team retreated to their vehicles, Jake and the Colonel stood together facing the dimensional rift. The Devourer Queen's presence was growing stronger, and Jake could feel the weight of her ancient malevolence pressing against his mind. There's something else, Jake said quietly. Zara warned me that the Devourers have human allies. People who have been promised power in exchange for betraying their own species. Torres' expression hardened. Collaborators. We've dealt with them before, in other contexts. Not like this, Jake replied. These people have been changed, corrupted by Devourer influence. They'll be stronger, faster, and completely loyal to their alien masters. The rift in the sky pulsed, and Jake felt the Queen's attention focus on him like a laser beam. When she spoke, her voice bypassed his ears and carved itself directly into his consciousness. Bridge builder, the Queen hissed. You carry the blood of the Wanderers. How long has it been since we consumed one of your kind? Jake stood straighter, drawing on reserves of courage he didn't know he possessed. Long enough that you've forgotten what we're capable of. The Queen's laughter was like the sound of stars dying. We shall see, little hybrid, we shall see. The dimensional rift began to close, but Jake knew this was only the beginning. The Devourers had found Earth, and they would return in force. He had to find the others, the humans who could be transformed into Earth's guardians. The fate of Vaus, his entire species depended on it. "Colonel," he said, turning to Torres, "I hope you're ready for a war unlike anything humanity has ever faced." Torres shouldered her weapon and looked up at the slowly healing sky. "After what I just saw, I'm ready for anything." 3 weeks after the desert encounter, Jake Martinez stood in a converted warehouse in Nevada, watching as the 5th human transformation took place. The process was becoming more refined, but it was still agonizing to witness. Dr. Michael Chun writhed on the medical table as alien DNA rewrote his cellular structure, his brilliant mind expanding to encompass knowledge from across the galaxy. "His vitals are stabilizing," announced Dr. Patricia Valdez, the molecular biologist who had joined their cause after witnessing Jake regenerate from injuries that should have been fatal. Heart rate dropping to normal, brain activity off the charts. Colonel Torres monitored the readings from her command station. In 3 weeks, she had gone from skeptical military officer to the operational commander of humanity's most secret defense force. The Pentagon had given her unlimited resources and complete operational autonomy. After she submitted her report on the Devourer encounter, "How many does that make?" Torres asked. 12 confirmed successful transformations," Jake replied, his enhanced senses monitoring each of his transformed allies. "But we've lost 4 candidates. The process is still too dangerous for most humans." The warehouse housed the most advanced technology on Earth, much of it reverse-engineered from the knowledge Jake had gained from Zara's blood. They had developed energy weapons that could harm the Devourers, detection systems that could identify dimensional rifts, and communication networks that operated on quantum frequencies. Dr. Chun's transformation completed, and he sat up slowly, his eyes now carrying the same silver flecks that marked all of the enhanced humans. "I can see it all," he whispered. "The mathematical structure underlying reality itself, the equations that govern dimensional travel." "Welcome to the club," said Maria Santos, one of the first successful transformations. She had been a psychic investigator before the enhancement, and now she could read thoughts across continents. "It takes some getting used to." Jake nodded, remembering his own traumatic awakening. "Dr. Chun, your background in theoretical physics makes you invaluable. We need someone who can understand the Devourer's technology well enough to counter it." But even as their numbers grew, Jake knew they were facing an impossible task. The Devourers had consumed hundreds of worlds, and their queen possessed power that dwarfed anything humanity could muster. Their only advantage was surprise, and the fact that Earth's unique position in the galaxy made it difficult for the creatures to maintain a stable dimensional portal. "Sir," called out Lieutenant James Park, one of Torres' most trusted officers, "we're receiving reports of unusual activity in major cities worldwide. People are disappearing, and there are reports of individuals with superhuman abilities committing acts of sabotage." Jake's blood ran cold. The human collaborators. They're making their move. Torres pulled up a world map on the main display. Red dots marked locations where unusual incidents had been reported. Tokyo, London, New York, Moscow. They're hitting major population centers. It's a coordinated attack, Jake realized. They're trying to weaken our infrastructure before the main invasion. Dr. Chun, still adjusting to his enhanced abilities, studied the pattern of attacks. There's something else. The locations aren't random. They're positioned at specific geometric points around the globe. If I didn't know better, I'd say they're trying to create some kind of planetary resonance pattern. Maria Santa's eyes widened as she processed the implications. They're turning Earth into a giant tuning fork. If they can match our planet's natural frequency, they can create a permanent dimensional bridge. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. How long do we have? Based on the current rate of activation, Dr. Chun calculated, Maybe 72 hours before the pattern is complete. Torres was already moving, her military training taking over. I'm calling in every favor I have. We need teams deployed to every major city, and we need them equipped with our new weapons. It won't be enough, Jake said quietly. The collaborators have been enhanced, just like us, but they're working for the other side. They'll know our capabilities, our weaknesses. Then, what do you suggest? Torres asked. Jake looked around at his small team of enhanced humans, each one a living bridge between species. We split up. Each of us takes a team to a different city. We disrupt their pattern before it can be completed. That's suicide. Maria protested. We're stronger together. But we can cover more ground apart, Jake countered. And if we fail, if the Devourers establish their permanent portal, it won't matter how strong we are together. Dr. Valdez stepped forward. There's one more thing. I've been analyzing the blood samples from the collaborators we've encountered. They're not just enhanced, they're being controlled. The Devourer influence is literally rewriting their neural pathways. Can it be reversed? Torres asked. Maybe, Dr. Valdez replied. But it would require direct contact with one of our enhanced individuals. The alien DNA might be able to counteract the corruption. Jake nodded slowly. Then we have two objectives. Stop the resonance pattern and try to save as many collaborators as possible. Within hours, teams were being deployed across the globe. Jake took New York, Torres went to London, Dr. Chun headed to Tokyo, and Maria Santos flew to Moscow. Each was accompanied by a small team of the best military personnel Earth had to offer, armed with weapons that had never been tested in real combat. As Jake's plane descended toward JFK Airport, he could already sense the wrongness in the air. The collaborators had been busy. He could feel their presence like a cancer in the city's neural network. Buildings were resonating at frequencies that shouldn't exist, and the barrier between dimensions was becoming increasingly thin. Sir, called out Sergeant Rodriguez, the leader of Jake's military escort. Intelligence reports indicate that the enemy has taken control of the Chrysler building. They're using it as some kind of transmission antenna. Jake looked out the window at the iconic skyscraper, its Art Deco spire now pulsing with an unholy light. Then that's where we start. As they landed, Jake's enhanced senses detected something that made his blood run cold. There was another enhanced human in the city, but this one felt wrong, corrupted. A familiar presence that he recognized from his shared memories with Zara. We're not just fighting random collaborators, he realized. They've sent one of the originals, a human who was enhanced centuries ago and has been serving the Devourers ever since. The final battle for Earth was about to begin, and Jake Martinez, former photographer turned humanity's guardian, prepared to face an enemy who had been perfecting the art of betrayal for longer than most civilizations had existed. The Chrysler building stood like a twisted antenna against the New York skyline, its Art Deco spire crackling with dimensional energy that made the air itself writhe. Jake Martinez crouched on the roof of a nearby building, his enhanced senses mapping the enemy positions throughout the corrupted skyscraper. Beside him, Sergeant Rodriguez and his team checked their exotic weapons one final time. I count at least 30 collaborators, Jake reported, his silver-flecked eyes tracking heat signatures that moved in patterns no human should be able to achieve. But there's something else, someone else. The presence he had detected was growing, stronger, and Jake finally understood why it felt familiar. Through Zara's blood, he carried the genetic memories of every enhanced human who had ever existed, including those who had fallen to the Devourer's corruption. Thomas Brennan, Jake whispered. He was enhanced in 1847 during the Irish potato famine. He was supposed to be Ireland's guardian. What happened to him? Rodriguez asked. He made a deal with the Devourers, traded his humanity for the promise of power and immortality. Jake's jaw tightened. He's been serving them for over a century. The building's spire pulsed again, and Jake could feel the dimensional barrier weakening. Around the world, his fellow Guardians were fighting similar battles, but he could sense that some were already failing. Dr. Chun's signal from Tokyo had gone dark 30 minutes ago, and Maria Santos in Moscow was fighting for her life against overwhelming odds. "We need to move now," Jake said, standing and flexing his transformed muscles. "The pattern is almost complete." They rappelled down the side of the building, Jake's abilities allowing him to move like liquid shadow, while Rodriguez's team followed with military precision. The first floor was empty, but Jake could sense the trap waiting for them. "Up," he said simply, and they headed for the elevators. The building's interior had been transformed into something that hurt to look at. The walls pulsed with veins of dark energy, and the air shimmered with potential violence. As they ascended, Jake could hear the collaborators moving into position, their enhanced senses tracking his presence just as he tracked theirs. They reached the 70th floor before the attack came. Collaborators burst through the walls themselves, their bodies partially phased through solid matter. Jake met the first one with a blast of silver energy that sent the creature flying backward, but more kept coming. "Fall back," Rodriguez shouted, but Jake shook his head. "No, we push forward. The longer we wait, the stronger they become." The battle was unlike anything human forces had ever experienced. Jake moved through the enemy ranks like a living weapon, his enhanced abilities allowing him to predict and counter every attack. But the collaborators were fast, strong, and utterly without mercy. Rodriguez's team fought with the desperation of soldiers who knew they were humanity's last hope. Their exotic weapons carved through the enemy ranks, but for every collaborator they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take their place. "Jake," Rodriguez called out. "The stairwell." Jake spun to see Thomas Brennan descending toward them, his century-old enhancement having evolved into something monstrous. His skin was like polished metal, his eyes were portals to the void between dimensions, and his presence made reality itself recoil. "The young Guardian," Brennan said, his voice carrying harmonics that made the building's structure groan. "You carry the blood of the Wanderers, but you lack their wisdom." "I know what you are," Jake replied, silver light beginning to emanate from his skin. "You're a traitor to your own species." Brennan laughed, and the sound shattered windows throughout the building. "I am evolution, boy. I am what you will become when you realize the futility of resistance." They clashed in the center of the room, and the impact sent shockwaves through the entire building. Jake had never fought an opponent with abilities matching his own, and Brennan's century of experience showed in every move. "You feel it, don't you?" Brennan taunted as they exchanged blows that would have leveled city blocks. "The weight of responsibility, the knowledge that you're fighting for a species that will never truly understand what you've sacrificed." Jake ducked under a strike that would have decapitated him and countered with an energy blast that sent Brennan stumbling. "Maybe they won't understand, but they deserve the chance to try." "Pathetic," Brennan snarled, and suddenly Jake was fighting. Not just one opponent, but 3, as Brennan's form split into multiple instances of himself. "The Devourers offered me power beyond imagination. They offered me a place in their eternal feast. And all it cost you was your soul." Jake shot back, his own abilities expanding to meet the challenge. The knowledge Zara had given him was deep, and he drew on techniques that had been used to fight the Devourers on dozens of worlds. The battle raged through multiple floors of the building as Jake and Brennan's conflict tore through steel and concrete like paper. Rodriguez's team had been separated in the chaos, fighting their own desperate battles against the remaining collaborators. Finally, Jake managed to pin Brennan against the building's central support column. Both of them were bleeding silver, their enhanced blood mixing on the floor and creating patterns that seemed to move on their own. You cannot win, Brennan gasped. Even if you destroy me, even if you stop the resonance pattern, the Devourers will return. They always return. Maybe, Jake admitted, his hands glowing with power that could end his opponent's century-long existence. But every world they've consumed has left them a little weaker. Every guardian who has fallen has taught us something new. And maybe, just maybe, we're the species that finally stops them. He reached out with his enhanced abilities, not to destroy Brennan, but to restore him. The corrupted guardian's eyes widened as Jake's power began to burn away the devourer influence that had consumed him for over a century. What are you doing? Brennan screamed. Giving you a choice, Jake replied. The same choice I was given. Die as a traitor, or live as a guardian. The corruption fought back, but Jake's will was stronger. Slowly, painfully, Thomas Brennan began to remember what it meant to be human. The metal receded from his skin. The void disappeared from his eyes, and for the first time in a century, he wept. I remember, he whispered. I remember why I chose to be enhanced. To protect them. To protect all of them. Together, they destroyed the resonance transmitter in the building's spire. Around the world, Jake could sense his fellow guardians achieving similar victories. The dimensional barrier held, the invasion was stopped, and humanity had won its first victory against the Devourers. But as Jake looked out over the city he had saved, he knew this was only the beginning. The Devourers would return, and when they did, humanity would be ready. They had guardians now, bridges between species, and the knowledge of 1,000 worlds. Jake Martinez, former photographer turned protector of Earth, smiled as he watched the sun rise over a world that would never be the same. The transformation was complete, but the story was just beginning. And somewhere in the depths of space, Zara of the Celestial Nomads felt the victory through their bond and whispered a prayer of gratitude to the universe for producing a species brave enough to drink alien blood and become something more than human. The war was far from over, but for the first time in eons, the Devourers had been stopped. And it was all because one man couldn't resist the call of the unknown.